Well, welcome First Community. My name's Craig Maynard, First Senior Mentor for FRC West in Canada, and this is our second shot at First Labs live stream. Today we're going to have a discussion about strategies and strategizing, and this is something that would apply to First Tech Challenge, First Robotics Challenge, and you could probably even garner some knowledge out of this if you're into First Lego League. Now, a good strategy is important, and it's very, very important that you understand you have to get out of this competition what you want to get out. And winning is important. Winning is a lot of fun, but winning isn't everything. Sometimes your strategy might be to create the most amazing lifter or the most powerful robot, or it could be a personal goal you have as well. But if your goal is to win, if your goal is to place very high, maybe go to championships or worlds, a good strategy is a great way of starting, and all the best teams have the best strategists. So what I'm going to do now is, Max, are you on the line right now?
I am here.
All right. So Max Kalbrack, my colleague, First Senior Mentor here in Western Canada, is going to talk to you guys about Strategy 1. So Max, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Welcome everybody. This is one of two sessions that we're going to be putting on to cover the topic of strategy in our educational series for the 2017-18 year. Myself, I am, as Craig mentioned, he and I are First Senior Mentors for Alberta and Western Canada in general, I guess. We all have many roles within our First community and the First Robotics Society, which is the charitable organization that looks after First and is the official recognized partner for all 4 layers of First for Alberta. I'm chairman of the board for First Senior Mentors, First Robotics Society, a little bit of a typo. I also have the title, for whatever it means, of Chief Technology Officer. Personally, I am a mechanical engineer and a computer scientist, so I have degrees in both disciplines. And a little bit about this presentation. I will say that I begged, borrowed, and stole a lot of pieces of this presentation from many other teams, many other sources on the internet. Okay, let's get into it. Designing and building a robot, lots of fun. Everybody has a blast doing it. I have a blast doing it. And I try my darndest not to build. I let the kids build. Designing and building a cool robot is even more fun. Designing and building one that does what it's supposed to be, looks neat, has blinky lights on it, everything else is a lot of fun. Designing and building a cool robot that performs well for the tasks that we are given is even greater fun. You don't have to win, but if you have this entity that runs well and you're proud of and you've learned a lot, that's what else can you ask for? That's it. But winning is good. Winning is good. So really, what is strategy? I'm going to focus a lot on FRC, but it is also very transferable into the FTC's world of things as well. So why are you here? Why are you building a robot? Why did you join a First team? What do you want your robot to do? Part of the strategy. Figure out, you have this competition. You have lots of things that you can get your robot to do. But which ones do you want to do? Do you want to do them all? Do you just want to do some of them? What do you want to do? Then how do you want to do it? You need to be able to pick up a ball. Well, there's a lot of different ways you can pick up a ball. So how do you want to do it? Or do you want to pick up a ball? That's probably your first question. Then how are you going to do it? Like, how are you going to pick up the ball? You're going to have arms that reach out to pick it up. You're going to have it roll up into your robot. Many different ways. But these are all part of your strategy. How you want to build something. And what do you want to build? The other part of today's presentation, we're going to talk about scouting. Scouting is something you do at the actual competition itself to figure out who the other people are. What their strengths, what their weaknesses are, how well they fit with your robot, and what you're doing. There's different types of scouting. It's very important when it comes to alliance selection, when you know about the other robots and know who will work well with you, and to be honest, who won't work well with you. Because when you're coming to alliance selection, what you're trying to do is pick the 3 teams that are going to work together that will compete and allow you to do the best you can for the competition. There's different types of scouting. One of them is in the pits, the other one is actually in the match. But it's not just scouting your opponents, it's also scouting who you're competing with. You are randomly chosen to go in alliances for the round robin component, and you need to know what your partner's strengths are, because you need to build off their strengths so that you, as a group of 3 robots, or 2 in FTC's case, are going to do the best you can. The next strategy session, which is in about a month, I believe, we're going to talk about the alliance selection process and the strategies around it, and then the drivetrain strategy. What does your coach do? What do the drivers do? What does the other operator, what does the human player do? Some of that depends on what the game is, but there's definitely strategies built into your drive team. So why are you here? Kids as well as mentors. Well, the reason I'm here, the reason why I know a number of teams are here, they want to learn something. They want to learn about STEM skills. They want to learn what they can do, how they can do it. They want to have fun doing it. They want to build a cool robot. A lot of teams are out there because they want to go to Worlds. It's Worlds Championships. For us in Alberta, a number of teams that compete here, rookie all-stars, some of the other award winners, as well as the 3 robots that win our competition, our regional. Again, I'm talking about FRC, are going to be invited to go to Worlds. And Worlds for us is Houston. It is about 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks after our competition, our regional for FTC, which is the beginning of April. 2 weeks later is Worlds in Houston. There are 400 FRC teams there. There's a whole gambit of FLL teams and FTC teams as well. So it is just an amazing opportunity. If you win, if you get an invite to go, my strongest suggestion is that you would do just about anything you can do to make sure you're able to go, because it's going to be an experience you'll remember for the rest of your life. So whatever the reason you're here, whether it's to learn something, have fun, go to Worlds, build the best robots you can, it's hard to do without a plan and a strategy. In FRC world, you got 6 weeks to design, build, program, and test the robot. For FTC, you have a few months, of 3 or 4 months total, to do the same thing. But you can't do it without understanding what it is you want to do and why you want to do it, what the strategy is that you're going to be following. Other things to remember is FIRST Robotics is not an individual sport. It's not an individual team. It's not an individual person. You're not in this alone. You work as a team to build your robot, to operate your robot, to compete in this. You compete with your partners. So whether they are randomly chosen for you in the round robin, or they are the alliance you select for the finals, with your partners. Your goal might be to have fun, but your partner's goal might be to go to Worlds. They might be really anxious to do the best that they can and win as many games as possible. You need to understand that, so that that you do the best you can, that you help your partners out as much as you can, and still allows you and your team to have as much fun as possible. You don't want to let them down. But you always have to remember the credo of FIRST Robotics is gracious professionalism. You have to do so with respect, and be able to help out everybody you can, do the best they can, and they will help you as well. The other credo is cooperation. It's a word that was formed, I think, by Woody Flowers a few years ago. You have to cooperate, but it's still a competition. So, goals. Besides the wanting to build the best robot you can, have fun doing it, and be proud of what you do. Alliance selection, if you want to go through and actually do the best you can and win, the alliance selection is the key. You have 50 teams competing at a regional, or however many there are. Only the top 8 are guaranteed to go into the top 8 will rotate through 1 to 8, and each one of them will pick an alliance partner. And then they go 8 to 1 back, and they will pick another alliance partners. So you have 8 groups of 3 teams each. Now, that doesn't mean the top 24 teams will be in those alliances. The top 8 might end up wanting to choose somebody else who has a better robot that's better matched for what their robot does. If you're not in the top 8, you need to be an attractive team for those top 8 to pick. So you need to have a strategy to make sure that you are doing something that will be attractive to those top 8 teams. So let's look at this from a schedule point of view. The build season, and we'll talk about FRC, but it could be related and is related to FTC as well. So day 1 for FRC is kickoff. At the Aldred Center at SAIT, Craig is very gracious to be able to host as many teams that can show up, where we do a group reveal of the video when it does their live streaming in, I believe it's 9 o'clock our time, to reveal around the world simulcast of what the game is. It will show the reveal video displaying what the game is, and it will also release the game and administration manual to tell you what all the rules are and what the nuances are for the game. For the rookie teams, I believe we'll have it this year, but Craig is the one that runs it, so it's his decision. We usually try to put on a quick build for teams, which means that we will work with the rookie teams to try to take their kit aparts, put together their base chassis, and get it up and running so that they can build on that from a game element point of view, the things that they want to do to actually compete and actually do the game.
Oh yeah, we're doing a quick build, all right.
Perfect. Always a good time, always fun, and always great for the rookie teams.
And a robot on 3 days.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit too.
All right.
But what do you do after a quick build? Or what do you do after your team leaves and you need to get going? What do you do? What do you do at this point in time? Well, my suggestion, just suggestions, read the rules. Second thing you do, read the rules. Third thing you do, you got it, read the rules. You need to understand totally what this game is. You need to understand all the different ways that you can win points. A game is divided for an FRC team, FTC as well, divided into 3 sections. The autonomous section is the first 15 or 30 seconds where you have to program your robot to do things without you controlling it. They need to be able to drive forward, pick up a ball, shoot a ball, do whatever the game is, but do it just based on the programs that you write. The points for those tasks that you do in autonomous are usually a lot higher. You get a lot more points to be able to do things in autonomous mode than you would in teleop. Teleop is the middle 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of a 2.5 minute game. It is where the teams run up and they start picking up their controllers and start running their robot by hand. Then there's the end game, which is typically, again, in FRC, the last 15 seconds where you need to do a particular task for, again, certain points. Last year in Steamworks, the end game was to be able to climb a rope. So that's an interesting thing you need to do. You can't do it before the end game, but it is something that you can do and should try to do for the end game and program your robot to be able to do that. Where to start? The reveal game, understand what it is, the video, but also what to do now. I would strongly suggest that you go in and take a look at previous year's reveal videos. Go onto YouTube, they're all there. So in YouTube, search out other teams. You now know what the game is. Search out the other team for that particular year and see what their robot does and how they did it. So how did they interpret the game and how did they build a robot to do that game? Once the year starts, Craig mentioned is Robot in 3 days. This is something that SAIT is putting on, hopefully sponsored by FRS, First Robotics Society for Western Canada. It is where a group of professional, no kids, mentors, adults, professional people like Craig, who is a major instructor, an excellent instructor at SAIT in the Megatronics area. They take the game and where you have, as a team, 6 weeks to build this robot, they will do it in 3 days. They will take essentially all the game elements, all the game points, and build a robot that will hopefully do all of it. By watching these videos, and there's a number of these teams around North America that will do this. By watching these videos, watching what these teams do to build their robot and what they decided on how to build it, will give you a lot of ideas and thoughts about how to do their robot, or how to do your robot. Same holds to FTC. They also have, it's not a robot in 3 days, it's a robot in 1 weekend. And SAIT again did a robot in 1 weekend build for the FTC robot this year. So that is also online, so you can go in and watch it as well. Another source of information is Chief Delphi, which is an online chat forum used extensively by first teams. There's always people on it from different teams. If you have a question, that is one of the best ways to go in and just ask it. One of the more experienced top quartile teams. Somebody will be on there and more than willing, in the gracious professionalism sense, to help you and answer your questions. Now, the other section is actually the First Robotics Q&A. This is a forum that you can ask questions about the game itself to First Robotics, and they will answer it and clarify what they mean by the rules. Sometimes they are a little vague in what they say. They don't intend to be, but it comes out that way. And if you need clarification, or if you need clarification on something that they didn't say, this is the place to go to actually ask your questions and see all the other questions that are asked as well. It'll give you great insight to the thought process on the other teams. And if the rules don't say a robot can't do it, then you are allowed to do it. But honestly, I would verify it in the Q&A just to make sure that you can. They will come across things. First, headquarters will come across things that they realize that they should have put into the rules. And during the 6-week build, they will alter their rules slightly to cover those points. So, your strategy for the game. Let's get into this. So you read the rules, you understand what the game is, you've read it 2 or 3 times. Start making a list of all the points you can earn in all 3 sections. So what are all the things you need to do in autonomous mode and how many points you get from it in teleop mode as well as the end game. List all the points, make sure it's complete, don't leave anything out. Also take a look at the game, now that you know more about it, is analyze how to prevent your opponent from scoring points. Honestly, if you can prevent them from scoring 10 points, it's the same as you earning 10 points. The other thing is, during a match, the person or the team with the highest points are not necessarily the team that wins. There's a whole ranking system that goes in where you get certain points to win. If you get the highest number of points in the game, you get a ranking point. If you do certain things, you get a ranking point. But understand what the ranking points are, how to earn them. They are quite often more important than the actual points you score. All of this will be listed in your game manual. So make sure you totally understand the ranking systems and how to get ranking points. One team that went to Worlds this year from our regional, they did really well in the round robin of Worlds, but they didn't get many ranking points, and that put them so far down that they were not chosen by any other team to compete in the finals. So you make a list, you have all the points, all the different ways you can score points, then start taking a look at what you have there. Every one of those tasks that you can do per point in any one of those 3 sections, start analyzing it. How difficult would it be to build something to do that? 1 to 5. How difficult would it be to program it on a scale of 1 to 5? How difficult would it be to operate your robot to do that, whether it be in autonomous mode or teleop? And how easy would it be for your opponents to defend against it? Again, 1 to 5. So now you have all your points, you have all your rankings. Some of your rankings will be inverse, so make sure you understand what your rankings are. They're all geared the same way. It might be, it's really difficult to build, you give it a 5. It might be really difficult to program, it gets a 5. It might be really difficult to operate, you give it a 5. But how easy would your opponents would be to defend against it? Well, if it's really easy for you them to defend against it, I don't know if you want to give it a 5 because it would sort of hurt your ranking programs. You might want to give it a 1. So make sure your ranking is in tune with all your other rankings so that you can look at all these numbers and start making sense of it. So do your analysis. Don't let the cool factor affect your thinking. Be pragmatic about it. Make sure you understand what it is you need to do. Then you rank them and you prioritize all the different tasks, all the different things, all the different ways you can get points, going from the low-hanging fruit, the things that will give you the highest number of points for the least amount of effort. Your build period is 6 weeks, so it's not long, and you're going to have to make some decisions because you rarely see a robot that will be able to do everything on the field to get all the points possible. Always consider the experience and knowledge of your teams and mentors. Always. Don't overstep your ability to actually build this robot to do these tasks. It might be really cool to build a robot to be able to climb a rope, but if you don't have the knowledge and experience to figure out how to do that, you might not even want to try it. You might be better off focusing your efforts on some of the other points. So this is part of the strategy. What is it that you want to tackle? But again, make sure that you keep to the level of knowledge and experience of your team and mentor. Focus on the easy tasks with big points. the low-hanging fruit. Like I said, you also have to think about how to defend against your opponents. As I said, denying them 10 points means it's 10 less points you need to score. There's also a second list I would suggest. Start taking a look at desirable quantities or qualities of your robot. Not just how it would score the points, but do you want a fast robot? Do you want something powerful? Do you want to be able to have a very agile robot that can turn on a dime? Think about the tipping factor of your robot. Think about the weight. How much do you want it to weigh? Do you want something? We have a weight limit of 120 pounds typically. I'm assuming it's going to be the same this year. Do you want to be at 120 pounds, or do you want to be more like 80 pounds for some reason? Then durability. How durable do you want your robot to be? My opinion, what I would consider to be probably the most desirable quantities out of that list is speed, the agility, and durability. What you want, it's going to be a long 2 days of competitions. You don't want to be going back after you compete in a match and have to spend your time fixing something that broke on your robot. It does happen, and it happens a lot, but as durable as you can make your robot to be able to withstand a game, and a game can be really quite rough. Make sure that you're as durable as possible so that you can withstand a game and you can focus your precious time between matches on other things that are going to be more valuable for you. Third list, some of the functionalities. Shoot balls. Just about every year that I've been involved, which is 6 years now, ever since we started the Western Canada Regional here in Calgary, or now called the Rocky Mountain Regional. As a side note, the name changed because there is a Canadian Pacific Regional in Victoria this year for the first time. I'm starting to call it affectionately CPR, Canadian Pacific Railway, or sorry, no, Canadian Pacific Regional. So what are some of the functionalities you want to be able to do? You want to be able to shoot balls or something, frisbees, different size balls. Do you want to be able to climb? There's typically something that you will have to climb. How do you pick something up? Whether it's a gear from Steamworks last year, or balls on the field, or something else, then how do you traverse obstacles? 2 years ago in the game called Steamworks, you had to traverse a number of very rough obstacles that started shaking robots to death. So make a list. Once you know what the game is, make a list of some of the functionalities that you think you might want to achieve or try to achieve, and how it fits in with the points and everything else. So make whatever other lists that make sense. Depending on what the game is, it might be these 3, or it might be 2 of them, or you might be ending up with 4 lists with something else, depending on what they come up with. Then what do you do with these lists? You merge them all together. You get one list considering it all. So do you want to have something that shoots? Do you want to have something that pick up balls? Do you want to score these points? You just put it all together on one list. This is really your build strategy. You prioritize this list, and this is what you try to build, is your priority of this list of everything you want to do. A fast robot, be able to pick up balls, to shoot into high goals. But remember, you really can't do it all. Not in 6 weeks anyway. Never forget that you always work within the skills, experience, and knowledge of your team. And be honest about that. Don't overestimate your capabilities, or else it's just going to hurt you. Also remember that if you have 3 things that you want to do, each of them are 10 points each, and you can achieve all of them, but only 50% of the time, you'll get 15 points out of that. But if you focus on 2 things, and you in the 6 weeks, and you can get them done so you can do 100% of them 100% of the time, you'll get 20 points out of that. So it might be best to focus on 2 things and do them well than to do 3 things and not be able to do all of them well. Also, if you do 2 things and you do them really well, that might make you very attractive to those top 8 teams in alliance selection period. If you can prove to them, through the scouting that they do, that you are very, very good at doing these tasks, and they believe that those tasks are very important for this game, you could very well be a robot that they're keeping their eye on so that you can participate on their alliance. Now you have a build strategy, but it's not your marching orders. You will need to trade things off. You might have your build strategy that says you want to have a speedy robot with lots of power. Well, you might not be able to do both. You might want to shoot and climb. Well, it might be one or the other. You might want to shoot the high goal or shoot the low goal. Probably one or the other, probably not both. Robot to be wide, or do you want it to be short? Do you want it to be tall? All sorts of options that you need to trade off on. If you try to do more than what you're capable of doing, you will most certainly fail. And that goes for the experienced teams as well as the rookie teams. Let your strategy drive your design. This is a very important stage. You would need to be very wise and not skip this or shortchange it. Take a few days to a week to actually do this right. You have the reveal video. You don't need to jump in and start building the next day. Think about your strategy. Think about what it is you want to do. Plan how you want to do it. Actually design your robot. I strongly suggest you learn some CAD. One of the tools that we use quite often is SolidWorks, and we're going to have a couple of educational sessions on SolidWorks coming up here before the end of the year. So figure SolidWorks out as an option. There are other tools like Inventor, which is part of the AutoCAD suite, that you could use as well. Either one, it doesn't matter which one. I'm not promoting one or the other, but actually design your robot electronically. See how you would build it. See where your binding points might be before you actually build it. When you do build, always remember that you're probably going to be prototyping things. You're probably going to be building something. Understand that it doesn't work. Okay, take a step back. Let's redo this a different way. That's all part of the learning process. It's all part of the 6-week cycle to get your robot. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to get something wrong. Take a step back and do it right the second time. Remember, this is a team game. You need to count on your partners on your teams itself, the people that you are working with every day to get your robot done. But they also need to count on you. So you need to do your best as well. And again, that goes beyond just your team, but also your partners, whether it be your 3-team alliance that you are competing with constantly for the playoffs, or the partners that you're running with for the randomly selected teams during the round robin day and a half. Most often overlooked and very, very important. We're now getting into scouting. Scouting is what you do for essentially the days leading up to the actual alliance selection and during the playoffs as well. It doesn't start with the round robin matches. It starts with the practice day and setup day and on bagging day. So for FRC, it starts on Thursday, not just the round robin, which is Friday and half of Saturday. And it also continues into the playoff rounds Saturday afternoon. So it's really important you do this. And to be honest, I don't see many teams that do this well. But if you do this well, it will help you compete effectively and competitively. I would suggest that you have a dedicated team or teams for scouting. If you have enough people on your team to have 2 or 3 people that will do pit scouting. They will go around and talk to all the other teams there, find out a lot more about their robots, and you have dedicated teams that will do match scouting as well. So they'll sit in the stands and they will make notes around every team that's out there and how well they're doing during the round robins. Make sure you have the ability to record and analyze the results. Might be paper. There are a number of what I would call the top echelon teams that actually have applications that they use that runs on mobile devices to actually record all this information. Then it gets stored in a database somewhere so it can be analyzed. These teams have made their scouting application available to anybody who wants it. Most teams have. I won't say everyone. But most teams, if you go on Chief Delphi and ask, or if you just start Googling on the internet, you will find these applications for mobile devices out there. And it's your choice if you want to use it or just stick with paper. So what's the use of having these scouting teams out there doing all these things unless you actually use the data? So the scouting team should actually understand what the competition is, not what the competition is, but the matches that their team is doing, who they're competing against, who they're competing with. So in a round robin matches coming up, they know 2 or 3, 4 games in advance that the team is going to be competing against team number 1482. I'll pick on them. It's what the team I actually mentor. So that they make sure that they go out and do the scouting on that team ahead of time so that before every match that they are in, they can go back to their drive team, what they know about the 3 teams on the competition, but also the 2 teams that they're partnering with. And it gives the drive team and coach a really big heads up to know what to look for and what to experience out there and how to work with your partners, but also how to work essentially against the competition so that you can either block them or you can score them more points than they can. Like I said, it's not just your opponents you're scouting, but also your partners. It is also a great way to include more students on your team in an activity that's really quite critical. So if you have a small team, you make do. You figure out how to do it. It might just be 1 or 2 people doing scouting. If you have 30 people on your team, it's a way to include some of the other members in a critical role, because you can only have 3, 4 people in the pits at one time as the pit crew repairing your robot. You only have 4 people on your drive team, so you really can't utilize all the people on your team. But scouting is one way to include them in a task that is really very critical and very important. It's a tiring role. You can't really force somebody into doing it. But whatever you can do, you try to make it fun. And you get a lot more buy-in from the people doing scouting if they know that you're actually using their gathering, using what they're doing to help you compete or helping the team compete on the field. Scouting team talks to the driving team before every match about the other teams in that round robin game or the whatever game's being played. Pit scouting is different than mass scouting. You have 2 or 3 kids. They go around and they talk to every other team out there, every one of them. You take note of their robot. What's their drive team or drivetrain like? Do they run on a 6-wheel, 8-wheel, 2-wheel? Do they use Mecanum wheels? Do they use Omni wheels? What's their gearing like? What their motor is like? What's your impression of the quality of their robot? How rugged is it? How well is it built? Ask me if you can take pictures of it. If you can take pictures of it, it will help you distinguish between who you talk to. Because if you end up talking to 49 different teams, it will all turn into a blur. But if you have pictures of these teams, you can sit there and, oh yeah, I remember them. They do this, they do that. They're good. Their quality is suspect, whatever it is. But also talk to them. Don't just observe their robot. Ask them to tell you about their robot. They're probably as proud of their robot as you are of yours. And they would love to talk to you about what they've done, why they've done it, what they think their strong points are. Because they want to pick you just as much as you want to pick them. So you scout every team in the pits, you talk to them, take pictures, but make sure you ask permission before you do that. Match scouting, go out there and you have another set of teams watching every match, taking notes about every robot that's competing. What you do is record things like match score, like who won it, but also the points scored by every individual team. You might have a match of 3 robots that win the match, or an alliance of 3 robots that win the match, but there is only 2 out of the 3 that are scoring all the points. You want to know that. You can't just rely on the match score. You need to understand what robot is scoring which points. Also, what attempts are they doing? Are they 50% successful at scoring points, or are they 90%? And what sort of penalties have they taken? And what are their general strategies when they're competing? What do they do for autonomous? How well do they do it? Watch their human players. How fast are they? How well are they doing their job? It very much depends on what the game is. Last year's game, Steamworks, they had a human player, 2 human players who are actually on the field, which is rather unique. Never had that before. Don't know what it will be this year, but there will be a human player that will at least be running around doing something around the outskirts of the field or giving instructions back to the drive team somehow. But watch their human players, how well they're communicating with the drive team and how fast they're doing what they need to do. And also, do they interact with the other teams? Do they interact with your partners on your alliance for that game? Is a team a leader? Is it a follower? And also, is it a lone wolf? Do they interact with the other teams well? Or are they just playing their game and not really interacting with the other teams that they're partnering with? What are their strengths? What do they do well? What do they not do well? What are their weaknesses? So these are all the things that you can make notes about. These are only my suggestions on how to do match scouting and what you need to record. Count the points scored by each team. That's about it. That is all I have for scouting. Very quickly, I've gone through the build strategy, a little bit about the design strategy, and the two different types of scouting. There's a lot more detail to this, but I wanted to keep this relatively short. So if there are any questions, I can answer them at the end. If you're watching this after it's being recorded, you can always email me or Craig and ask us questions about what's going on, and I'll put a plug in for the first senior mentors, as well as a couple other people we have, 3 other people that we have that we're calling first program mentors. You can email me at max@frcwest.com. And my apologies for Craig for not putting down his email, but it is craig@frcwest.com. And that is all I have for today. The next strategy session will be in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think, 4 weeks, whatever it is. Hey, Craig. Oh, no problem. On the other items, which is the actual game strategy, the match strategy, the drive teams, and how do you actually run a game well. And that is it. It is now 10 to 6, or sorry, 10 to 8 my time. If you have any questions now, I'd be more than willing to hear them and answer them if I can. If not, then perfect. Yep, let's go. Yes. That is a fabulous idea. No, I like that idea. Actually, if Steve gives me permission, I'll build it into the presentation for next year. Okay, so I just got a text, Craig, saying your voice is not on the live stream. That's what Russell just texted me.
A quick look at properties here. How about now? Is that better? Is that better now? Hello? All right. But you can hear me though. All right. All right. Okay. Keep it simple. Speak from experience. I've just told you what Spartans had to say. Really good advice. Now, Spartan says, is there any kind of an app or anything out there for scouting? I mean, there's so much data that comes all the time that it's overwhelming for these people. And he's wondering if there's any kind of an app out there. And somebody else mentioned, well, if you do have an app, it's hard to use Wi-Fi because that's usually shut down at a contest. So maybe they could use data on their phone or something. Do you know anything like that? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Bluetooth. Might not have the range, but at least they can intercommunicate. And Paul recommended just having a USB stick that can be passed around too. Um, Spartan says, you know, when you do have scouts, don't count on just one scout. You should have at least 6 scouts out there because you have to rotate through them. It's an exhausting job, and you should have more than one. Maybe a lead scout and then a bunch of follower scouts. Right, right. Oh, yep, yep. That's good. There was another, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Steve or somebody, but they said that they actually get FLL students to do some of the scouting. Some of the senior FLL guys help with the scouting, which I think is a great segue into them going into First Tech Challenge and then First Robotics.
Be truly in alignment with the rules, but I don't think that truly matters
Yeah.
for the sake of scouting.
All right. Now I had a little audio drop out there. I have to apologize for that. I hope everybody can hear Max again. All right, Maxwell, that was a fantastic presentation. You know, I think you've really hit a lot of the important key points on scouting and following the rules and your strategizing. I can't wait to hear what you got for your level 2 session. I can't imagine what else there could be. Do you have
Well,
any
it's match play, drive teams, roles of the people in the drive team, strategy of actually running the game,
drive teams or
and a
so?
little bit more. Yep, and a little bit more about alliance selection, actually.
All right. All right, Max. Well, thank you very
So,
much for a fantastic presentation. And thanks everybody who jumped on board and listened to our live stream. And again, this is going to be archived on the First Robotics West site, so you can come and review this anytime you like. And we're sure glad to have you guys on board.
and my last comments are, if you have any questions, email myself or Craig, and I'm always open for feedback. If there is anything that you um, want to say to me about how I presented and anything I can do better on next time, I would be more than willing to hear it. So I appreciate any feedback. So I got one question texted to me, is where will the presentation actually be? So we will have this whole thing streamed so that you can go in and watch it anytime.
Mhm.
But I can put the presentation somewhere as well and notify everybody of where that will be. I'm not sure where that will be right now.
Yeah, probably someplace on the FRC West website, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much, Max, and thank you, everybody. It was a lot of fun. If anybody has any ideas or things they'd like to see us do on these webcasts, or people you'd like to hear from, we can bring in talent from right across North America here to you. All we have to know is what it is you need to know, and we'd be very excited to set it up. So hope you'll see us next week. We've got another exciting presentation for you.
What is the topic next week, Craig? You know,
Here's our schedule right now. Next week, we're going to be talking about surfing the season. So this is going to be a discussion on what you should be focusing on each month leading up to kickoff, and what you should be doing after kickoff up to the games. And then after the games are done, there's still a lot of mop up to do. So we're going to be surfing the season. Week after that, we're going to be doing a SolidWorks introduction for beginners. Following that, basic electronics and wiring. Some of the principles you need to know about the wire sizes and cabling and interconnecting, because wiring problems can be a real hassle in robots, a leading cause of failure. The 13th of November, a little bit about Java. On the 20th, we're going to roll into LabVIEW and talk about that. Maybe a second level of SolidWorks by the November 27th, and your second strategies course on December 4th.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to close out then, and thank you all for coming. Tell your friends and subscribe to this channel. Hopefully we can get more people coming to see us, and we can get more talent out to you guys. All right, and you guys have a great time and keep building.